Hey guys, Camp for 15 back out with another video for you guys, and I'm back with another My Dress Up Darling episode review for you guys as we are continuing on, I believe, going to the last episode of next week. I apologize for missing the last episode. Um, Shit just came up in terms of work. It was basically the final week of our season, our weekend of our season. And we had an extra few games to playoffs, which sadly we got eliminated, but it is what it is. But anyways, I am going to look to presumably catch up on many of the various animes that I have missed a lot of episodes, reviews of talking on. So I'm going to get through all of them as best as I can. So I'm gonna start off with My Dress Up Darling. The last two episodes, last week and then this week's episode, were great. Going into, I think, the season 2 finale, just which is essentially titled, it's again kind of like the first season, My Dress Up Darling, but I think this next week's episode is called Dear My Dress Up Darling or something like that. Let's talk about last week. So if you remember from a few weeks ago, Kitagawa, at the end of that episode, which was, I believe, episode 9, Kitagawa was kind of freaking out because she's like, wait, does Gojo like want to have, the sex with me, right? So in last week's episode, you just see her throughout the episode being all freaking paranoid about this. And she's like, what the hell, bro? Like, is he going to freaking do this thing with me, or is he not going to do this thing? Like, she legitimately, in a kind of a weird way, kind of somewhat dolls herself up, kind of is just preparing. Like, you just have her where she wears, like, these special, like, underwears and then bra and everything. And I'm just like, and she's just like, bro, what the hell do I do? So, she legitimately, walks in and she's all like flustered. She's like, well, if it happens, it happens, I'll be ready. I'll be ready, right? And she's sitting on the couch far away from Gojo, and Gojo's just like, what are you doing? Like, why are you sitting so far? And Kitagawa's like, oh shit, he wants me to sit closer to him because of other stuff, right? So then what ends up happening is she starts freaking out. She ends up falling down a bit, and Gojo was like, hey, are you okay, Kitagawa? And he's basically on top of her, right? And she's in this position where she's like, what the heck, what the heck, what the heck? Is this gonna be the moment where he's gonna do it? And it's like, it looks to her like, oh, he might go and all crazy and everything. So then she kind of says like, hey, I'm not ready yet. Like, give me some time right now. I'll let you know when I'm ready. And Gojo, obviously oblivious to this, he doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. And he's like, wait, what the hell are you talking about? And she just ends up running off, right? Essentially, we find out she just goes to her room and she just knocks out and she sleeps for the night, right? Gojo, on the other hand, is still playing the game. And he gets to this point in the game where it kind of freaks him out to the point where it's like, what the hell? And then he realizes, like, he's gotten so far, like, the save file shit is gone now. Like, he can't save files, so whatever is done is done. And it scared the shit out of him, which was funny. It's honest to God, kind of like that Five Nights at Freddy's security breach after you beat the initial main story. To basically get the other endings, you have to go back to the Pizzaplex, but you can't die, right? Because you can't save. So he was kind of afraid of the fact that he wasn't able to save and he could lose all of his progress, which made him staying up super late at night all kind of pointless, I guess you can say. But anyways, Kitagawa wakes up and she legitimately is like, huh? Like Gojo, and then she sees that Gojo was completely up the entire time. And then she eventually sees that, oh, what he was, what he had, what she thought, like, oh, we're gonna do the dirty. She realized, like, oh shit, he just had energy drinks. And she was quite embarrassed with that, because she thought, like, oh, this is the whole thing. But you see later in the episode, it kind of gets into her whole thoughts about her feelings for Gojo and essentially wanting to confess those feelings to him. And kind of the whole thing there is she, I guess you can kind of say she's afraid to confess her feelings to him and say like, hey, I like you more than a friend. I actually love you. And I want to be like your girlfriend, right? And she kind of has these feelings and these uneasy feelings. The fact is, because she knows, like, well, Gojo kind of doesn't really acknowledge the fact, about relationships, because we remember early in like the first few episodes of the season, he kept turning down the fact, like, oh no, no, we're not a thing and everything. And even season one, he made the mention, like, oh no, no, we're totally not a dating or anything, right? And she feels like as if she were to tell him, like, hey, I like you, like Gojo might be like, one, either reject her, or two, make it to the point where maybe Gojo probably doesn't want to hang out with her anymore because of those feelings. And it's kind of understandable for a high schooler, who we know that Kitagawa was really clearly in love with Gojo. And like any high schooler who is a friend, who has a friend that they are definitely into, you're gonna have those thoughts of like, well, if I do confess to this person about, maybe wanting to be more than just friends, like, what is the situation? How's the relationship gonna be? How is that going to change? Are we gonna, if we do start doing that stuff, is it gonna be any different? Is our relationship gonna be any different than it was when we were friends? Or like, what if he rejects me and it creates some odd rift between us because maybe he feels weirded out about that. Maybe he just leaves me. And it's all understandable on Kitagawa's side of why she has these fears about it, because it kind of lines up with the fact of like, she doesn't ultimately know if Gojo likes her back like that. We know that she likes him back, or she likes him like that. We don't know if Gojo likes her like that. And we know Gojo tends to get really flustered around her, mostly because he's a shy dude. Now, I do think deep down, Gojo does like Kitagawa. I don't think he likes her like that in that type of way, like she likes him like that way yet. Until he gets the realization, right? Because but then again, that could be the type of fear of where maybe Gojo feels like maybe I'm not good enough for Kitagawa. Like, that could be his thing, and he kind of plays off like that. But it was kind of cool to get this interesting development with Kitagawa because, you have it where it's clear that Gojo does care about Kitagawa. He makes sure he addresses her concerns and her needs and helps her out whenever, he can, right? And that's what she really likes because not only is he treating her nicely, he's a good, genuine dude. And it leads to a scene where he's walking her home and, essentially it gets to the point where it looks like she's going to straight up confess to him. Like she's going to straight up confess to Gojo and say like, Gojo, I'm in love with you. And she doesn't say it because of those fears coming back, and she holds it in again. And that's where kind of that episode ended off. So I wonder if at some point we're going to get close to a confession. And it seemingly enough, it definitely looks like it's going the direction of, excuse me, she's going to confess to him as opposed to him going to confess to her. And again, it would be interesting if there becomes a little bit of a rift because of that. And honestly, I would be okay with that. And typically in the romance shows I watch, I don't like that weird rift they do between obviously the main two couples of a romance series. But I think for this, it would be good to have this rift where they're apart and Gojo maybe does the thing like, oh, I'm gonna go, Kitagawa. Thanks for letting me know. Maybe he has to figure out his feelings, and maybe his grandfather helps him out with those understanding those feelings. And he's like, look, this girl clearly likes you. Like, you help her out, you do all these things. Don't you feel the same for her? And it's kind of like a little. Again, it's kind of like in some cases, flagrant flower blooms with dignity, where the main female character has so much of an impact on the male character, which changes them for the better. Now, I still do believe Marin and Gojo are definitely gonna be endgame by the end of the series. And to be honest, um, I can't wait for when a confession scene happens. But last week's episode was really good content. And I thought like, oh shit, we're actually addressing and we're actually forwarding their relationship in terms of like maybe getting a step closer to a potential confession. So I have to wonder if maybe next week, maybe the cliffhanger for next week's, I guess, season finale is we get the confession. I don't know. I'm just gonna guess. Now, this week's episode was kind of mostly about what is it? Basically Akira and then Juju. Now it's kind of split into two different things, right? So with the Juju stuff, right? She's obviously they're preparing. It's a few days before their coffin cosplay, and again, Juju is kind of unsure if she wants to cosplay as something else because we know she likes to cosplay as her magical girl characters, and that's kind of the whole thing there. Now you have it to where Miyako and trying to find the other game um or the other name of the character. I'm trying to see. Miyako and Suzuka. They kind of help out. They essentially you have it to where Shinju and Kitagawa and Miyako and Suzuka, they all come up with this plan to basically get Juju back into doing maybe a different cosplay. So that's kind of thing. And basically you have to where Miyako and Suzuka, they show and open the doors for Juju because we know Juju feels like she can't do other cosplays because strictly she feels limited. She felt limited due to her height, and just the way she looks, and obviously, her chest size and everything. And she feels like she's been limited to doing that because we even find out in the episode when she talks to them after they do make her do, I think, the Black Lobelia costume, right? Cosplay costume. What is it? She actually was going to retire from doing cosplay because of the limitations that she has. So we see her like they help her out with this because she's like, I don't see how I could improve myself to everything. But Miyako and Suzuka are like, no, well, we can help you. We can help with that. They also kind of give her this like, she talks about having obviously her flat chest, and they give her like this thing that kind of pushes up on that. And she looks at it and she's like, oh shit, I actually have cleavage for once, which that's crazy to say. But they end up dressing her up into the Black Lobelia costume, and she looks really good, right? She looks really freaking good in it. And they're just like, oh my goodness, you look so cute. And that's when she obviously explained, like, I thought about retiring from cosplay and things like that. And we kind of find out like she's kind of not going to stop because her sister, right? Now her sister and Kitagawa come back, and her sister is just happy that she looks cute and adorable and everything. And they have a nice moment. Kitagawa has her funny, cute, crying moment where they're just like, "Hey, you good, girl?" And they're like, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm good." It's so cute, so adorable, and things like that, right? So then, the Akira stuff, right? So we do get a bit of Akira's backstory. So the episode start. I don't know why I have so many hiccups. So Akira's backstory starts off. We start the episode off with Akira's backstory. So it looked like she was in like middle school, I'm guessing, about to go into high school, and we see her like crying as she's looking at her bookshelf. And we find out that her mother apparently threw away her manga, and her mom's like, look, you're getting too old for this stuff. Like, you don't need to be reading this stuff anymore. You're not a child anymore, right? And it's implied like she grabbed the books, packaged them, either maybe took them to the bookstore to sell, or she must have threw them out. Which one? Like, if your parent is throwing out your own freaking manga, like, dog, like, the hell, bro? Like, on my bed, I got like One Piece mangas, from East Blue to Enies Lobby, right? Okay, and the fight's still not going on. But you get my point, right? It was crazy to see that, for whatever reason, her mother wasn't supportive of her and said like, no, 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 you need to throw those away. You need to give up on those because you're not a kid anymore, right? And you just kind of get a flash, forward or quick summary of how her, life has been after that moment. And you see, she kind of became a shy individual and she started to get back into that stuff, right? Now that she was older. But she kind of hid that because she had this feeling or this idea like, well, if my mom says I'm too young for this or I'm too old for this, then I bet you other people would probably feel the same way. And they don't read the manga stuff and they don't read the otaku stuff and everything. And she kind of, albeit she had that, in the distance, she kind of kept that all to herself. Whereas, like, I can't let anybody find out I'm into this stuff because I'm ashamed. So, in a weird way, kind of like with Gojo and his Hina dolls, he had a bad moment in his child life to where he feels like everybody would consider him a weirdo for making Hina dolls and stuff like that. The same thing applied to Akira. She felt because of this bad experience with her mom saying like, "Oh, you're too old for this. You need to get rid of this." She thought, "Oh, maybe all my other classmates in school, they don't read manga and stuff like that. They're not into that stuff anymore." Right? It then led her into the cosplay world when she got older, and things like that. And she obviously, what we find out later in the episode, which I'll get into in a bit, he tells Gojo, but she ends up actually going over to Gojo's place, and Gojo shows her the Hina dolls that he makes and everything, and they kind of work together on a project. I think it's to help out the cosplay thing, right? And they kind of, again, they do connect. They have a really nice relationship, and I really do like Akira, and what she brings to the show, right? And then also too, she does teach him, some things, especially about making props and stuff like that. And she really does see like, oh no, he's really passionate about this stuff and everything. So yeah, but anyways, she then shows him a cosplay that she did with Miyako and Suzuka, where she looks like that one boss lady chick from that one anime that I think we saw a few episodes ago. She essentially said like, well, she never had any interest in cosplay, but because of Miyako and Suzuka, it essentially, helped them, right? Now, Gojo does make the mention, like, he does, because, when she does mention, like, I wasn't really interested in stuff, and, Gojo does, like, well, if you weren't really interested in that stuff, then why did you agree to their demands that they gave you? So, we find out in her flashback, she ended up coming across one of those gotcha, like, things where you put the quarter in and then you just spin the thing and then, a little ball comes out with a little like trinket or item, right? And you even see as she's going, she's like, gonna make sure nobody's in the area, right? But all of a sudden, Miyako and Suzuka show up and they're like, and they know her because they're in the same class. And they're like, and she's thinking like, oh shit, they're gonna freaking hate me and they're gonna call me weird. But they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't know you were into this stuff. That's so cool. And they actually appreciate her. And she was like, and she realized like, oh, wow. And they ended up doing the cosplay, which they looked all good and everything. And because of it, they ended up clearly becoming friends. Like you could tell, like, even though, maybe she reluctantly did these requests of theirs, it's clear she found friends that she can relate to and have fun with, and she enjoys being around with on the same level because she definitely enjoys doing the stuff that they like, right? Because they're passionate in the same way. So that was pretty cool, right? So yeah, that was the theme there. Yeah, Gojo basically, and Gojo, he does talk about how he relates to that in the form of, Kitagawa, and in a way of that's, his way of paying her back for everything that, she's done for him, and saying like, I can relate to you because Kitagawa did the same for me and made me feel, special, and I want to do everything for all the requests that she can do, right? So yeah, And then kind of the last bit of the episode, is the where Suzuka, where they bring up actually about the Akira stuff, right? And the fact that she doesn't like Kitagawa, and Kitagawa knows that already, and they're like, oh, like they're like, we're sorry, she doesn't mean it. And Kitagawa's like, no, it's fine, it's okay, and Juju's like, it's probably because your personality that makes it to where she doesn't like you or something. And it's kind of the thing is Kitagawa said she walked back into the room and she clearly saw that, Akira was more talkative, right? And yeah, but she already knows like Akira clearly does not like her, but she said she's okay with that. You have to, again, it, we have to really truly, we seemingly have an idea of why she doesn't like Kitagawa, but we don't know the actual true reason why she doesn't like Kitagawa. But it's very much clear, like, maybe it is because of her personality, and maybe the fact, she, maybe to Akira she comes across as a fake person. I don't know. But maybe Gojo's saying, like, no, I can definitely relate to how you feel with, Miyako and Suzuka. It's the same thing that Kitagawa did for me, and I want to make sure I'm there for hers for all her requests that I can do, right? So yeah, but it was a really good episode. Just diving into more of Akira's backstory. I mean, understanding that her and Gojo are definitely alike, and there are people that definitely are like those two, where they have a bad experience in their past, and somebody judges them for that. And essentially, because of it, they get wrongly accused or judged or being called weird. So everybody has their own likings. Like, yes, my number one thing is sports, but I'm pretty passionate with telling people like, hey, yeah, I may be 26 going on 27, but frick it, I do love anime. I love anime. So that's my freaking thing. I enjoy doing that and having fun and things like that with anime and watching it, right? So it was cool. But anyways, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna catch you guys in the next video. If you guys like the video, leave a like, put in the comment section your thoughts, hit that subscribe button if you want to get more My Dress Up Darling content. Next week, I think, is going to be the season 2 finale of My Dress Up Darling. The episode I just looked is actually titled Dear My Dress Up Darling. So with the fact that season 1's final episode was called My Dress Up Darling, and now next week's episode is called Dear My Dress Up Darling. Yeah, exactly. We're gonna get the end of My Dress Up Darling season 2. I fully expect them to announce a season 3 by the end of the show. I just hope season 3 doesn't take a super long time like it did with season 2 here, like, because we had to wait for a hot minute for season 2. Like, I really hope we get season 2 already greenlit and announced, and then boom, we get it within maybe at least a year. I would say, well, maybe not a year, but maybe in 2 years. Like, I don't want to wait another like 3-4 years for the next season of My Dress Up Darling, because it's like, dog, I've been waiting for this season for a long time, and now it's already coming to an end, bro. Already. Anyways, that's it. I'm gonna get it for. Catch you guys next video. Till then, guys, stay safe out there. Have a great rest of your day, night, or this video, and I will see you guys on the next video. Peace.